Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, we're going to be doing something a little fun, and I'm going to be doing a bit of a teardown on sales mistakes. And lately, I have been in the market for some health and wellness providers to be working with. So I've had a lot of conversations with people, and I have had a surprising number of them go really poorly. And I'm seeing this more and more. And as I've talked about some of these stories with some of my peers and with some of my clients, they have all shared that they've had similar experiences. So, what I wanted to dive into today is some of the poor selling mistakes that you want to make sure that you are avoiding. And I also want to break down what these people did that didn't work and what I would do differently if I were them and I were trying to sell me on their services. Because the sad thing is that each of these people are probably phenomenal at what they do. I know each of them could have helped me and could have potentially been somebody that I worked with. But in each of these 3 cases, I said no. I did not choose to work with them when I would have otherwise very easily said yes. And it all came down to their approach to selling. And the interesting thing is, these are mistakes that I would have expected coming from newer businesses, and they're mistakes I've seen newer businesses make in the past. But none of these providers were new business owners. And what I'm finding is that more seasoned and experienced business owners are making these mistakes too. And I know right now there's kind of some weird buying patterns going on. I've talked about that quite a bit on the podcast. I know people's sales are really unpredictable right now. Some people are thriving, and I hope that you are. But if you're in one of those weird places where things feel a little more inconsistent, a little more unpredictable, you're having to reimagine some things because the things that you were doing before weren't working, no, you are not alone. That is really common, and that's something that I've been helping a lot of my clients through over the past probably 12 to 18 months or so. But I'm seeing that continue still going through this year. And so maybe some of these strategies are happening because people are in a little bit more of a desperate feeling place to be getting sales because things aren't closing the way that they were before. It might be that they're simply getting really bad advice from coaches or from other experts who just don't know any better. Or the other thing that I suspect is that it might be that they've always had a not so great sales approach. However, it worked in the past because people were much less discerning in the past. But in today's market, where people are slower to make decisions and where people are much more discerning, those techniques are no longer working. They just won't cut it. So let's break down the 3 examples, what they did, and what we could do differently. So there's commonality in all 3 of these different scenarios, but I've kind of pulled one overarching lesson out of each one. So the first one is being very opportunistic in seeing people and making people feel like they're more of a dollar sign instead of a real person with real issues or real goals. This is where things can feel overly transactional, and it can feel like somebody just wants you to say yes because they're trying to close a sale. They don't so much care about you per se. They just want another customer who's paying them money. Everyone gets that we're running a business. Everyone gets that we're excited about closing sales and generating revenue and all those things because that's part of what keeps us in business and keeps us profitable. But nobody wants to invest in someone and make a decision where they don't feel as if they're valued, as if they matter as a person, and as if you're not actually interested in them. What happened in this scenario is I had been working with someone for a series of services. So it was a package that I had invested in. And throughout the package, they kept mentioning their wife to me and that their wife had these other services that they really thought I'd be interested in. And it sounded interesting enough. It was in the general ballpark of things that I enjoy doing, but it wasn't really something that I was actively looking for. And when this person had mentioned it during our sessions, it didn't feel overly pushy or anything. It just sounded like, "Hey, wanted to let you know that this is happening and I thought that you might be interested." Fine, great. Well, as our session started coming to a close, this person that I was working with kept increasingly trying to get me to buy more sessions, to do more things. And I felt really complete. I felt really good about the work we had done together. I felt like we were all set. And so I said, not right now. I'll circle back. I'll do some more sessions maybe in about 6 months or so. But right now, I feel really great about where I'm at. And instead of letting that be and respecting that I was in a really good place or giving me a really compelling reason why it made more sense for me to do another session or two right now instead of waiting, what they did instead was very much ambush me. And I did not appreciate it whatsoever. So in the final session, he said, "You know what? I think my wife's available. Would you like to meet her?" And I thought, "Well, not really. I kinda wanna just go home, but sure, I'll say hi," right? I've heard him talk about her for all of these weeks now. We worked together for about 90 days. So I thought, "Sure, why not? I'll say hi, I'll meet her." Well, it wasn't a meet and greet. It wasn't a quick, "Hello, nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you. Great, reach out if you're ever interested in," which would have been perfectly acceptable. It ended up being this super hard sell to try to get me to sign up for this thing that I wasn't even super interested in out of nowhere. I thought I was getting ready to leave, and it's like, "Oh, would you like to say hi and meet my wife?" "Sure." This was not at all what I was expecting. So I ended up super frustrated. It's something that I might have said yes to at another point in time, but that wasn't the time and that wasn't the way to go about it. What I would have done differently is, "Hey, my husband's told me a little bit about the work that you've done together. Do you have 5 minutes? I'd love to tell you a little bit about what I do. And if it's ever something of interest to you, let me give you my card and I'd love to chat with you about it." If she had done something like that, I would have left thinking, "Oh, that was really nice. That sounds really interesting." She could have offered to even follow up with me in 30 days or 90 days or in 6 months at any point in time, and I would have said yes, and I would have been perfectly fine with that, and I really might have considered working with her. But the ambush combined with the hard sell, combined with very much feeling like it was opportunistic. They were looking and saying, money's running out, sessions are running out. Let's find a way to get her to stay and pay more money." Right? When I didn't say yes to the first person, all of a sudden it was like, "Okay, well, let me see if we could get her to say yes to this instead." It didn't sound at all like they cared about me, my results, my goals, my interests. It really just felt more like they were trying to get me to say yes from a pure financial perspective. And that never feels good. And so not only am I not going to be working with the wife, but I'm not coming back in 6 months to do any additional sessions. I will not be working with that person again because I left feeling really frustrated and kind of icky instead of leaving feeling exciting about all of the work that I had just invested in that we had done for the past 90 days. So, my two takeaways from that experience, and really what I would recommend doing differently as you're looking at and approaching sales with people, is we all want to cross sell. We all want to upsell, right? I work really closely with my clients on this and making sure that they have the right cross sell and upsell and downsell and all the sell opportunities in place so that, they're able to fully maximize the revenue and the profitability that they're bringing in their business. We all do that. We all know that we do that. We all know other people do that. But I don't ever recommend that somebody sells something to someone purely for the money. It needs to be that that thing is really intentionally designed to get them the next level of result if it's an upsell, to help them get complementary results if it's a cross sell, or to help them get started if it's a downsell, if they're not yet ready for the core thing that you're selling, right? These things need to be done really strategically. And to me, they need to be very results and value driven, not opportunistic driven. I am a big believer in transformation over transaction. Now, obviously, as I'm sharing this, I'm speaking more about higher touch coaching, consulting services, something like a DIY course or a system or a template. That's more transactional by nature. However, I still don't ever believe that you sell something to someone if it's not the right fit and if it's not the right time. So they could have had lifelong customers, both of them. And if you think about customer lifetime value, I could have been a really high customer lifetime value for them. Instead, it ended up being a one and done package because they more desperately, high pressure, tried to force me into something. It ambushed me, never ambush people at a time when I wasn't ready and I wasn't expecting it. And so always look at what is that next thing that you can offer to someone only if that next thing makes sense for them. And how can you frame it in a way that feels like an invitation instead of like a push? Again, if she had said to me, "Hey, can I just spend 5 minutes, tell you a little bit about my work, see if you have any questions, and, maybe we can set up a time and talk about it if this ever feels like it's in alignment for you." I would have felt so dramatically different about it. This wasn't a sales call. I didn't go to her with the express purpose of hiring her. It was a, "Do you wanna meet this person?" random conversation, and it was in person, so it was even more awkward. But that being said, right, like, know who you're talking to, know their level of interest. Is it a sales call or is it just a meet and greet? Is it just a curiosity call? I have so many coffee chats with people, and I love coffee chats with people. When I get really annoyed with coffee chats with people is when they immediately try to sell me something. That's not the purpose of the call. The purpose of the call is to get to know one another. And if there's interest or if someone asks, then by all means, you take it to that next level or schedule another call, but you don't go in and turn it into a hard sell. So that is number 1 is do not be opportunistic, do not do the hard sell, do not ambush people, and really look at the transformation over the transaction and help real people with real issues and real problems and real goals to get real results as opposed to just try to get anybody to say yes so that you're bringing in money. So that is number 1. Number 2 is not doing what you say you will. This sounds like it should be something I shouldn't have to say, but I do. So let me tell you a little bit about this scenario. So, again, I shared I've been in the market for working with some people around my health and wellness, which is one of my big goals for this year. And I had met somebody who has this really interesting approach to things, seemed like somebody who might be a really good fit for me. So I was really, really excited to talk to her and to learn a little bit more about what it would look like to work with her. Now, her approach itself is fairly complex and it's highly customized, right? It's something that is not an off the shelf solution. She really digs in and does a lot of really deeply transformational work with people. And that was part of what attracted me to wanting to work with her and wanting to learn a little bit more about what she did. Unlike a lot of the people that I think go to her, I was already sold. She didn't need to sell me on anything. I got it. I got what she did. I'm pretty well versed in the health and wellness space. I understand what she does. I understand why she does what she does. It's not the first time that I heard about it. But I think for a lot of people it is, and for a lot of people it feels a little weird, and so I think she normally has to do a lot of explaining and probably a lot of justification. She didn't need to do any of that with me. I came in already ready to just find out the details and move forward. So we spent a whole lot more time with her kind of trying to justify what she does and why she does it and why it's important that we really didn't need to. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I got it. I got it. Like, let's just get to the good stuff here, right? Like, you don't need to sell me. I'm cool." But that was fine. Whatever. I get it. She has her thing that she's used to doing. It was kind of interesting to just observe her go through it too. But these are long calls. These are like 60 to 90-minute calls. I would have preferred the 30-minute shortened version where we got right to the meat of things. But because of the complexity and the customization, she tends to do 2 free calls before she delivers her customized proposal. And as I shared, those calls are long. They're 60 to 90 minutes. So I have to clear my schedule and free up the time for them. And the first call was fine. The second call was just like the busiest time for me. I was in the middle of a lot of different stuff. I had personal things going on. And so fitting that 60 to 90-minute block in my calendar was not an easy feat. But I did it, and I got the call, and I was excited for the call. She had told me what we were gonna be going through in the call, and so I was going into the call quite excited. I had done a bunch of homework, I had done a bunch of prep. She had given me some things to do between calls. So I came into this call ready to go. I had cleared my calendar. I thought we'd kinda get into the meat of what it would be like to work together, and I get to the call, and it was none of the things that we discussed. No discussion on any of the things that we prepped, no discussion on any of the things that we were supposed to go through. The call was over in 10 minutes, and I left the call super frustrated, pretty confused, and the exact opposite of what I thought I would leave with, which would be excited to work together. The other thing that really did not go super well in the whole process was on the very first call. She had specifically asked me what I wanted to work on. There was an example of some things that we went through together, and she had asked me to list a few different things, which I did. And then she asked me to pick one to work on. So I did. I picked the one that for me was the biggest, most burning issue that I felt like if we could do this, if she could help me with this, I don't care what she's charging me, I'm in. And instead, she picked something different. She asked me what I wanted to focus on. So I told her. And then she chose one of the other things that I had mentioned instead of that and said, let's work on this. Now, she probably had a really good reason for choosing the other thing. Maybe the thing I picked was too big to do on the call. Maybe the thing I picked wasn't the right thing. Maybe the thing she picked was the root cause of the thing I picked. I have no idea why, because she didn't tell me. To me, it felt like she skipped over the burning issue for something that felt much less important and that I wasn't focused on at all. I'm sure she had a really good reason for it, but she did not communicate it. So again, I left a little confused. And that was the first call. And I was like, okay, well, maybe when we get together in the second call, we'll focus on it. She did ask me to pick. Why did she ask me to pick and then pick something different? I was a little confused. And so in the first call, there was already some evidence of not doing what I say I'm going to do or changing things up different than the expectations that were set. But then when the second call went so dramatically different from what we talked about in the first call, needless to say, I did not hire her. And I'm still a little annoyed by it because I was really excited to work with her. However, I will find somebody else to work with instead. And arguably, maybe she has the best process on earth, but I'll never know it because there were multiple things that came together that had me say, she's not doing what she said she was going to be doing. I can't trust that things are going to move forward the way that we said we were going to. I'm not going to make this investment, which was a really big investment. So here's what I would have done different if I were her. First things first, she does have a kind of complex process, and she does have something that she needs to justify to a lot of people because they're not super familiar with it, right? Anytime you're in the little bit of woo space or anything, sometimes you do have to explain things. So there's two different things that you can do. One, you make sure that you're only bringing in people who have that buy-in already. And then you're speaking to your ideal client without having to over explain or over justify to anyone. That would be the very first thing that I would do. But let's just say that she's like, no, I want to help everybody. Maybe she's still at that point where she's willing to take the time to convince and kind of educate people on things. Great. That's her decision. She can do what she wants to with that. But what I would do is those 2 60 to 90-minute calls are quite a bit. I would have some short audio or video series that people had to listen to before the first call. I would also have a questionnaire that people had to do before the first call. So I would go into that call myself if I were her with a lot of knowledge about the person, and I would have that person go into the call with a lot of knowledge about the what and the why. That way we could focus more meaningfully on what they're looking for and kind of guiding them through what it would look like and how I'd help them get that result. The next thing I would do is I would kick off that call with an outline of exactly how things are going to go. I would say and frame, listen, it's going to take anywhere from 1 to 2 calls. Let's see how things go toward the end of the call today. Really, because this is so highly personalized and so highly customized, we need to have a discussion around several different topics. With a lot of people, we can do it in one call. Occasionally, we need to do it in two, right? Set the framing up front. When it comes to asking what the person wants to focus on, if you're going to pick what the person is going to focus on, just pick. Don't ask them what they want to focus on and then pick something different. Or if you are going to pick something different, clearly explain why what they picked isn't that. If she had said to me, listen, I know this is what you want to discuss, but there's a lot more that we need to get into with that. That's actually some of the work we'll do when we start working together. For today, why don't we focus on this? Because it's something that we can make some great progress on in today's call. If that was said to me, I would have left feeling great about it and then excited about the fact that we were going to work on the thing that was the burning issue for me when we started working together. It would have pre-sold me even more on working together. Then I would have wrapped up the call with clear next steps and expectations set, combined with an email that summarized that. So whether it was one call or whether it was two calls, I would have immediately wrapped up that call with a thanks so much. It was really great to connect today. I look forward to our next call, or next up, you're going to get the custom proposal from me. Here's what we discussed. Here's what to expect next. So I would set those expectations up front. And if there is a second call, I would give the person homework before the second call again. Maybe it's another questionnaire. Maybe it's something that needs to be done, and I would not hold the second call without that being done. They need to be putting in a certain level of commitment and seriousness as well before you give up, right? 2 60 to 90-minute sessions of your life for somebody who may or may not be serious. And so that's what I would do different. And the most important thing is do what you promise when you promise it. I'm going to have a proposal to you by the end of the week. Make sure that proposal comes at the end of the week. If it's just wanted to send a quick note to say, thanks so much, here's what's coming next, my team will be in touch with a link for 3 videos I want you to watch and a questionnaire I want you to fill out. And it will be to you by Thursday at 3. Make sure it's to the person by Thursday at 3. But most importantly, if you frame out and say, in our next call, we are going to talk about A, B, C, and it is going to take 60 to 90 minutes. Make sure that you actually talk about A, B, C, and then it takes 60 to 90 minutes. Don't switch things up completely last second and turn a 60 to 90-minute call into a 10-minute call that was a waste of time. So that is example number 2. Example number 3 is not having a clear process and increasing prices before you're ready. And before I get into this story, I want to talk a little bit about what it takes to make a good buying decision. Because ultimately, we know that know, like, and trust are critical. And if you would listen to the episode that I released right at the beginning of the year when I talked about my trends and predictions for this year, one of the things that I shared was that know, like, and trust are not going to be enough this year. You also need value. So it's know, like, trust, and value. And the reality is, until somebody actually works with you, value is very much perceived. It's only after they work with you that they get to fully realize that value, or not, if your either program doesn't deliver or if they don't take the actions and the steps that allow them to realize that value, right? You need to do what you can to be able to provide the value. You want to clearly communicate upfront what value to expect, and then it's up to them to roll up their sleeves, take action, make the shifts, do whatever needs to be done to achieve it. Now, there's multiple ways that you can increase the perceived value of something. Sometimes one of the ways to do that is to give somebody a taste of what it would be like to work with you. You give a free session or a free mini session. Sometimes it's simply really clear copy, really clear messaging. But when I think about value, I think it really comes down to a few things. So you need to make it really clear that you understand the person's problems and goals. Right? When we think about know, like, and trust, it's not just about them knowing you. You also have to show that you know them. And if you think about copywriting, right? Really good copywriting, really good sales pages. If you sell outside of a sales call, or if you're using email marketing, social media marketing, sales pages, web copy, anything to also support the sale, even if you do have a sales call. What is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to have people feel like they get me. They get me. They understand my problem. They understand my goal. They understand what I want or what I'm dealing with right now. So it's not just about them knowing you. You have to be able to show that you know them. So, so important. And if you look at the 2 examples that I've shared so far, I think you can clearly see that there's some gaps in them being able to showcase that they really knew me and what my goals and challenges were and what was important to me. Now, the next piece of this, and this one really comes in with this third example that I'm about to dive into. And that is you have to have a proven process that you are confident will get the person the specific results that they want. They cannot trust you if you do not trust yourself. I'm going to say that again because that's important. People will not trust you if you do not trust yourself. And a way to show and confidently and clearly communicate that you trust yourself to be able to deliver on the results that you promise is to show that you have a certain process that you guide people through that's going to help deliver on those results. At the end of the day, people really don't care what the process is, right? When I was talking to this third person, which I'm about to walk you through, I could not have really cared less what her process was. And I am a process person, and I couldn't have cared less what her process was. I just wanted to know that she had one. Without that process, I did not have any confidence that she'd be able to deliver. And that is why we want a process. That's why we want a signature framework, right? One of the things that I love, 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 love working with business owners on is developing their signature framework. I'm a big believer in systems and strategic systems. And I think one of the most important systems that you can develop in your business and one of the most strategic systems that you can develop in your business that helps you scale and that also helps you sell is having that signature framework. Sometimes people have that really clearly defined and they use it really well in their brand. Most people I find underutilize it. Either they have it more in their head or it's something that they do, but they don't necessarily tell people about, or it's something that they don't leverage in a really smart, strategic way to be able to both get the sale and to be able to guide people to results. So having that proven process really helps you communicate confidently or that you've helped other people get that result multiple times over. And again, they cannot trust you if you don't trust yourself. And something that goes along with that is they're also going to struggle to like you if you don't like yourself or you don't like what you do. Right. So when we think of know, like, and trust, we tend to always think about people knowing, liking, and trusting us. And that's important. Most people will not make a buying decision unless that's true. And as I shared, I think we really need to have value be a part of that. And we need to have a way for people to perceive the value of things before they're able to fully experience and realize the value, which they're only going to do when they work with you, when they join your program, when they attend your event, when they invest in your course, when you deliver your service, whatever it is that you're selling. But we also need to know, like, and trust ourselves. And we need to show that we know our client and we know their problem, we know their goals, and we know without a shadow of doubt that we can get them an amazing result when they say yes to work with us. And that needs to come through. And that takes me to my third example again, not having a clear process and increasing prices before you're ready. So ready can mean a few different things, right? Your pricing needs to align with the perceived value, can't be a mismatch. But ready means you also yourself have to believe in your pricing and you have to be able to confidently and clearly communicate that pricing. And in this example, none of those things were true. So I talked to this person. She was lovely, right? If we think about know, like, and trust, I instantly liked her. Instantly. She's great. If I ever was in her state, I would go grab a coffee with her. We'd probably have a great time. Instantly just connected with her and thought she was wonderful. But while I liked her, and while I felt like I kind of knew her pretty quickly, I did not really felt like she took the time to get to know me, but I also didn't really trust her and I couldn't see the value. So, while we were talking, it was a very meandering conversation. There was no, hi, it's so nice to meet you. Here's what today is going to go like. We're going to talk for about 60 minutes. Love to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes and just chit chat and kind of get to know one another, find out more about you, find out what you're interested in. Then I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about what I do and we're going to do a session together. I actually include a session for free as part of this. And then in the end, if you're interested and if this seems like it's aligned for you, I'd love to tell you about how we can work together and how I do my packages. If she had started the call that way, probably would have had a really different outcome. But instead, we just chit chatted for 5 to 10 minutes. And as much as I loved the conversation and it was lovely, the same time, I'm kind of thinking, what am I doing here? Why are we on this call? what is this call supposed to be? Right? I had no framing for what to expect on the call. And she had been a referral. I didn't go finding her. Somebody said, you should really talk to her. She's really great. So I went into the call thinking she's really great, wonderful. And because of that referral, I went into the call thinking I'd probably hire her. That did not happen. Then we finally got into the part of the call where we actually went through a mini version of the work that I would be doing with her. And it was a really smart way to approach things. That was one thing that she did really well was she gave you an experience of what it would be like to work together. But where it kind of fell apart and unfortunately did not really increase the perceived value was she didn't frame what she was doing really well. Again, I'm going back to that framing, right? If you can set expectations and you can guide people on a clear journey, they know what to expect, they know what's next. You're going to get people much more engaged and listening and participating in a different way in case they're always guessing and wondering, what is this? And why is this? And what does this mean? And why are we doing this? And what's next? And is she right? And it was very much that kind of call, like, a what's happening and where are we going with this? And it was all over the place, the call. So we go through this little experience, and I wasn't entirely sure about it. And then she goes to tell me about the packages, and I'm pretty sure she didn't even tell me. I think I asked. I think I asked and said, "So, okay, is this what we would do if we worked together?" Yes. Okay, great. And what exactly does this do? Like, she had never told me the benefit of it going into it. Like, okay, now we're going to go through this experience. Here's what it's going to be like. Here's the result that you should get. Here's why we do this. Here's why it's so important that we do this. None of that had happened. We just kind of like went into it. And so I had to ask some questions. And she said the one thing to never say. I was talking to my coach, and my coach was encouraging me to create packages. And I was like, okay, somebody just told her to increase her pricing. Like, if you are a coach, what do you probably tell a new client at any point in time? Increase your pricing. Most people need to increase their pricing. Doesn't matter if they are new to business or if they've been in business 20 years, most people need to increase their pricing. And so as soon as she said, I was working with my coach and she told me to create a package, I was like, okay, her pricing is going to be probably significantly higher than what I was led to believe coming into this call. But again, if I had seen the value in it, whatever. Like, that's fine. If it's going to get me the result that I want, I kind of don't care. I care about the result. I don't care about the investment as much within reason. And so she throws out the price and again, didn't really give much context. And when she did, it was much more the mechanics of it as opposed to the result. Instead of her framing it and saying, listen, you shared that this was really, really important to you. I'm confident that we can do this. I'm confident that we can do this over the course of 4 sessions. Here's how I work with people. We start with this call right here. Then I give you access to this, which I encourage you to watch before we meet the next time. I ask you to fill this out so you really think about ABC. And then we come together and we do 3 in-depth sessions. And in the end of those sessions, you leave with this, this, and this. Total time investment is 6 weeks, and the investment is this. If that was how she had approached it, I would have said yes, no hesitation. But instead, her framing was, my coach told me I should do a package. So let's do $2,000 and we'll do it'll be about 6 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do 3 calls and I'll send you some videos, and this is literally how the call went. So if that was painful for you, that was very painful for me on the call with her too. And again, her coach probably said to her, "Oh, good, you have a sales call this week. Try out this new package at this new pricing with this person." And I mean, I get the way it rolls. That's cool. And I would have gladly said yes to her if it had been framed differently. But she wasn't yet ready to share that pricing. She did not have a clear package around it. I could tell by the way yeah, so we'll do, 3 calls. Like, it was very clear that she was kind of pulling it together, and it wasn't a clear process that she did consistently. Now, what I gathered in talking to her, because she's done this for a really long time, is I think she much more just kinda makes it up as she goes along, and as she's working with someone, she kinda gives them as many sessions as she needs, right? One person might need 3, one person might need 6, but her coach came in from the outside and said, "Create a package. Create a package at this price point." And I'm speculating, but I'm pretty confident that that's what happened. And so what it is I think it forced her into a box that was different than the box she normally worked in, which is fine, right? You gotta start somewhere and then you change it. So I don't think she had kinda wrapped herself around and bought into the package herself yet. And I could also tell that I don't think she was comfortable with the pricing either. And you can't tell someone a price without confidence because when you do, their immediate spidey senses say, It's not worth that." They hesitated. They didn't say it confidently. "It's not worth that." Or am I the first person that they're trying to charge this much when the last person they charged half as much? And that was very much the vibe that she gave across. So I'm sure her coach meant well. Her coach probably gave her really great feedback in, let's put a package around this so your revenue's a little more predictable. Let's adjust your pricing. All of that in and of itself is fine. But what she should have had and what she really needed and what she clearly did not have when we talked was a clear process. She should have had a process for that call to guide what the experience was like. She should have had a process for her package that she could have very clearly articulated. It's a series of 3 calls. There's 2 videos. You need to watch the videos before the first call because that's going to prepare you. It takes 6 weeks. Here's what I recommend, and here's the result you're going to get. Never once did she talk about my result or what I wanted. All she talked about was, well, 3 calls. It was more the vehicle of how she was gonna get me there instead of where I wanted to actually get to. Out of all 3 scenarios, the one and only one person that I would actually consider working with in all of this is this one person. I did really like her. I know she's really good at what she does. I think she just had a really terrible sales process that she needed to refine. She didn't do anything offensive. She didn't not do what she said she was gonna do. There was none of those sorts of things. It was more just that she did not have the confidence in it, and therefore, I did not have the confidence in her. She did not trust herself, and I did not trust her as a result, and she was not able to show the perceived value where I felt like it was worth that investment. So if she were to reimagine and shift her process, she's the one that I'd be open to having another conversation with. And it's because I can so relate to that, right? Can you relate to that at any point in your journey of trying to sell things? Have you ever kind of tossed a price out there that you were like, I hope they say yes? And you didn't necessarily have the confidence around it, or you kind of made up a package on the fly that didn't really exist, and you know that it did not come through in quite the way that you had wanted, right? Like when I think back to my early days in business, I can totally relate to this woman. And although it wasn't a new business for her, I think it was the first time she was shifting one off services into something into more of a package. So I can relate to that one more. But to wrap this up and round things out, there are a lot of really poor sales techniques that are out there. And you want to make sure that you are not inadvertently making any, or if you are coaching clients, if you are guiding clients, you want to make sure that you are helping them to not make these mistakes as well. So to summarize, right, you don't want to come across as opportunistic. You don't want to come across as transactional where you're just seeing people as a dollar sign instead of a real person with real issues and real goals. You don't want to move forward without a clear process and a clear way to communicate the value and confidently communicate the value. You don't want to increase your prices before you're ready. Ready can mean before you actually add enough value to your program for it to be worth the prices that you're charging. And ready can also mean just simply you having enough confidence in them to be able to communicate them as such. And then finally, you don't want to not do what you say you will. You want people to be able to trust you. And as I shared, know, like, trust, and value, really, really important for this year. And it's not just people know, liking, and trusting you. It is you know, liking, and trusting yourself. And you also helping them to feel as if you clearly know them, you know what they're going through, and you know how to help them. So I hope you enjoyed some of the stories of these sales conversations that I have been having lately and took away a few things that you can leverage for yourself or for your clients. in what not to do, as well as some ways to approach things that will lead to great sales and great results. And if you want any support developing your signature framework, as I shared, it's one of my very favorite things on earth to do. Go ahead and put some time on my calendar at leanoutmethod.com/consult, and let's chat about what that would look like for you. Hope you got a ton of value out of today's episode. I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. If you have not yet taken our scalability assessment, I invite you to head to leanoutmethod.com/assessment and take our interactive assessment that's going to help you look at how simple, how sustainable, and how scalable your business currently is. It includes personalized recommendations of where to focus next to get your time back, to increase your impact, increase your profits, and ultimately step into your rich, fulfilled life. And finally, we'd love to see you inside our signature program, Simplify to Scale. You can head to leanoutmethod.com/ops to find all of the details on how we can help you uplevel your operations and get out of the day-to-day of your business.